Well guys, welcome back to France, welcome back to the Charente River. You're joining me, it's August 2020 on a brand new carp fishing adventure. We're back on the same section as last year. We're going to start down here, hoping to find some of them beautiful fish that we found last year. So guys, as well as them beautiful commons and mirrors that we're hoping to get stuck into, I want to look at some of the practical sides of fishing out here in France, the permits you need, what kind of bait to bring, hardware, rigs, and also the benefits of having a boat and an outboard. Okay guys, so it's the first night down on the bank. I just want to quickly run through the rigs that we're going to put out. I'll go into more detail a bit later on in the video, but for now, just so I can get the rods out because the sun is dropping, I'm going in with 5-ounce leads because I'm dropping on the far side, a bit like I was last year, onto the ledge. It's about 12 to 14 foot deep. I could probably get a little bit shallower this year because there doesn't appear to be as much weed at the back of the swim as there was last year. Because of the rocks that I found last year, I've gone in with helicopter rigs on 2 of the rods. I've got about 10 to 12 inches of a real stiff coated braid, just that end piece removed, so you got a bit of movement with the hook. It's a size 4 hook and a 20mm hardened bottom bait. I'll go into the reasons why for that later in the video. That's a complex T bait there, just a straight bottom bait, no pop-up. And I'm just going to hook a PVA bag on that. The main reason, as I explained before, not so much for the attraction, but mainly because I'm dropping the rods out in the boat. I just want to keep that hook away from the lead as it's dropping in a tight arc when I'm dropping it off the boat. So guys, the second rig is exactly the same as the first. I'm going in with the helicopter system, mainly because of the rocks. I may have to change that. I'll see how I get on with the takes on that, because obviously the lead and the rig are going to separate once I get a take, which could be a problem with snags and rocks that I know are out there. The reason I'm using the helicopters is because I'm dropping in the boulders, and I'm a little bit wary about the rig being pulled in on a normal leg clip. So the second rig is also a helicopter rig, but I'm going to use a snowman hook bait on exactly the same hook length. Now the third rig, I'm going to use something slightly different. There is a section of the swim over there near the trees that's a bit more clay, rather less rocks. So I'm going to go in with the leg clip system that I would prefer to use. Now these are the hybrid leg clips. One thing you get with these, when you get a take, there is no way that the clip can leave the swivel. It's all molded in as one. What you find with the normal leg clips where you push the swivel in yourself is the takes are that violent here, they actually eject that part, and you end up playing a carp with this lot swinging 20 yards behind you, which is not ideal. So it's the hybrid leg clips that I use. There again, 12 inches or thereabouts of the 35-pound Camotex, just stripped at the end to give that movement, size 4 hook, and then I've got 3 tiger nuts on there. That's something new for this year. It's not something I normally use, but I was getting a lot of problems with smaller fish last year. Now, as I've found in the UK, I think the small fish will still pick these tigers up. The difference being is, in the morning they will still be there. I just may have a problem with the rig tangling, but that's something I'm going to keep an eye on, and there may be changes during the week.
Oh, there you go, guys.
First fish 2020. Came at 10 to 7 this morning. Was looking good for a bite last night just as it was getting dark, but wasn't to be. We had to wait all night, which is not a problem when you get a beautiful fish like this. A mirror carp. Cliche, this river produces more commons. They are more common. And it's always nice when you get one of these beautiful big mirrors. Hopefully they come a bit bigger, but it's not a bad start. 27 £. Came on the single boilie over a load of 20mm bait. Good to see the bait was lasting all night. Looking forward to a few more of these on the bank over the next 2 weeks.
My French river fishing adventure revolves around our family holiday in France. We both enjoy exploring new areas of the river, sometimes by car or even a canoe, but best of all, walking sections as the sun drops, looking for the next carpy adventure.
There you go guys, second fish of the trip. Real long common this one. Real lively as well. Came off the far margin, slammed the rod down, massive drop back, and then basically did nothing until it came right in front of the rod tips. Once I got it under the rod tip, I couldn't do anything with it for about 15 minutes. It just kept going round and round in circles. Took the snowman bait again. Second fish on that presentation. Maybe I'm going to have to look at moving all three over to it. Beautiful common. Real long, lean, fighting fish. Almost as long as the unhooking mat. Okay, let's get her back and get packed up. Hi guys, welcome back. It's Monday night of the second week. Last week, 3 nights fishing, real difficult conditions. Couldn't get in the same swim 2 nights running. I've actually got in the swim I was in Friday, so I do know a little bit of bait's gone in this swim, but my biggest problem this holiday has been exactly that, getting bait back in the same area consistently and being able to fish over the top of it. Last year, 5 nights over a 2-week period, I managed to get in the same swim. I came down in the meantime and I was baiting up in between sessions, and it really paid off. Fishing these rivers, you really need to be getting back in the same areas, the same swims, especially if you're only doing short overnighters like myself. Okay, so one thing I mentioned last week was hopefully I'll be able to have a look at the hardware for you, rods, reels, line, braid, that kind of thing. So let's have a look at that now. Okay guys, so first up's the rods. I'm using quite a cheap rod. It's a Chub Outcast 3.5 pound test curve, 12-foot rod. Lovely through action on these rods though. When I'm fishing locked up with the braid on the far side, I don't feel I've got any problems with hook pulls. They're not a real tippy rod. They do bend all the way through to the butt. I really love these rods. Okay guys, so moving on to the reels, just any old standard big pit. I've got some nice cheap Emblem S 5000 T's here. The grey and gold ones that came out probably 15 years ago. Absolutely bulletproof, these reels. I mean, I've had no problems with any rubbers, the gearings, anything on these reels at all. I've got braid on here at the minute, but I also use mono out here depending the conditions that I'm fishing in. You need a nice big reel, not for the capacity of the line, but basically the cranking power when you're trying to pull these fish away from the snags. Okay, so it's okay having these rods with the power and the strength, having the reels loaded up with braid and have everything locked up, but then you need a very good rod rest system, otherwise you're going to lose the whole lot in the river. Okay guys, like I said, it's okay having the rods, the reels, the braid, everything locked up. It's okay having the hardware, but it's no good if you can't stop them fish getting in the snags. This is where the rod pod system comes into play. The pod I'm actually using here is a ProLogic Tri-Sky 3 rod pod. I've done this in a review somewhere else on the channel, so if you're interested in that, go and have a look. It's a really good rod pod and I really recommend it. Absolutely sturdy and solid. For the money, you cannot go wrong with these pods. You've got obviously the buzz bars and a goalpost configuration, front and back. You've got the double bars down the middle, which are fully extendable to keep your butts on the right side of the alarms, and on the back you need an absolute solid butt rest. Well guys, it's Wednesday night. We didn't actually catch anything Monday. We had 2 serious problems. One of them, the river's gone tidal on me. The second one, floating weed. So the river at the minute behind me, you can probably see, is looking pretty serene. It's hardly moving. They've probably just opened the barrage further down to my right. it's about to start coming in. It's a really high tide tonight and it's going to cause me loads of problems. So guys, we had two choices really. We could either go further inland and try and find somewhere past the next barrage, but obviously that means starting again, or we can stick and stay and make it pay. We're going to stay here and see what we can do, come up with a new system. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. And that's where this new little device that I bought from the supermarket is going to come in handy. It's the brand new Fox line clip. Guys, the river's in full flow at the minute coming in. You can quite clearly see the problems I've got, the massive weed beds that are coming through. As soon as they hit your line, that's game over, especially if you get a couple of them. Okay guys, so hopefully you can see what I'm up to under here. I'm underneath an overhanging tree on the far bank, and what I've got just here is quite a sturdy branch. I've tied some 20-pound mono. I tried with the gardening twine, but what happens is when you tighten up from the far side, the peg spins and it wraps the line going to the rod around with the line going down to the lead. So I've moved over to the mono, plenty strong enough. I'll show you in a bit how easily they come out when you strike or want to wind in if there's a boat coming. And then what I've got attached to the end of that 20-pound line is a good old-fashioned garden peg. Now at the minute I'm using the wooden ones. Now obviously when they're in the water, these are getting wet. What happens is, as you can see there, I'm tightening against the branch. I'm dropping the lead while I'm in the boat directly below where I am now. And then using my peg, I'm wrapping it around in a certain way so when a fish pulls, it pulls out really easily. But when I'm pulling from the bank, it takes a little bit more force. So I've got a chance to put this clip in, row back to the bank, keeping the line out of the water and getting the rod in the rest. That's the theory anyway. Okay, so when we actually come to clipping the line on, the line from the rod end is that direction. So the line from the rod goes through the clip first, making sure to leave a bit of slack on the line going down to the lead, because once you tighten up from the rod end, the line going to the tree is going to lift the clip up. So we need to make sure we've got enough slack line here, so when we tighten up at the rod end, we're not going to lift this and lift the lead off the bottom and have it hanging like a pendulum. So the line from the rod end, hold it there, the line from the lead end, wrap it over the top of the clip, back underneath, and then through the clip. So inside the clip from the bottom up, just the once. What that's doing is the line that's now coming from the rod end is pulling against one wrap that's coming from the lead end. So the resistance on the peg from the rod end is pulling against that line. That enables you to tighten up at the rod end without the clip pulling out. You can still strike out of it, as you've probably seen on the video, not a problem. So when this is tight, going back to the rod, the line that runs down to the lead can quite easily be pulled out on a take.
Well guys, it's Thursday morning, nothing through the night, just packing the brolly down about 10 minutes ago. It's 20 to 8 in the morning, couple of bleeps on the alarm, turn round, rod tip slammed down, then massive drop back, fish on. Grabbed the rod, ran backwards, took up the slack line. The fish has ejected the lead by this point and it's on the top and it's racing with the current upstream. I'm trying to keep in contact with it and unfortunately the hook pulled. Absolutely gutted. The washing line rig's obviously working. It's got me a bite when there's no chance I'll be able to keep a lead in the water. As you can probably see behind me, it's flowing in rapidly and there's massive amounts of weed and trees coming down the river. Well, I say trees, I mean branches and cut off stumps that are coming in from the margins because obviously the water's raising up. It goes up and down about 3 foot when this tide comes in. We are a long way from the sea, but it still has a massive effect on the fishing in this area. Okay, so I'm baiting up at the minute. Hopefully I'm going to come back tonight. It's going to be my last night. Pulling all the stops out this time, putting plenty of boilie in, bit of tiger nut just to try and keep them in the area during the day while I'm not here. And hopefully I can get back down early enough this evening and get in the same peg, because it took me about 2 to 3 hours last night to get my 3 pegs positioned in the trees. And obviously I don't want to have to do that again tonight. It's wasted time. That's the only problem with coming down and doing these quick overnighters. As I've found this year, I've struggled to get back in the same spots. It was quite blatantly fish crashing out when I got here last night. Quite early, really, about 5:30. The tide was just starting to come in and they were blatantly feeding on the incoming tide. Not something I've noticed in this area before. Normally they feed during the night, but it was very, very quiet during the night. There was no carp crashing out. And then obviously getting that run first thing this morning. There again, about an hour and a half into the tide. Maybe they're feeding elsewhere during the daytime or during the night time, maybe in deeper water. But with these currents and the weed coming through, it's difficult to do anything other than what I'm doing at the minute. Well guys, one piece of advice, if you're ever using a boat, going out in a boat, whatever you're doing in a boat, make sure you're wearing one of these. Life jacket, life preserver, whatever you want to call it. Compared to how much money you spend on all the rest of the kit, it's absolutely invaluable. It's going to save your life one day if you ever fall in, especially if you knock your head or it's dark, especially in the cold. Make sure you're wearing one, you'll be safe whenever you go out in a boat.
Okay, so something I haven't touched on yet that was mentioned earlier on in the video was the use of a boat. When I first started coming out here in the early to mid 90s, I was fishing really big reservoirs, you know, Lac de Dare, Chanticog, the Orient, you know, 7,000, 14,000 acre lakes. And I didn't think twice about coming out with a boat. Wouldn't even dream of coming without a boat. You know, you're not casting from the bank on them type of venues. When I first started coming here 14 years ago, using a boat seemed a bit alien when I was only going to do a night. You know, I can cast out. Why do I need a boat? What use is it going to be? What advantage is it going to be? It's just going to slow me down. But over the years, I've come to realise that not only would I recommend a boat, I would say it's an absolute must. You can use it for baiting up. You can go out on it with your rods and you can plumb swims up accurately. You can check the bottom with your bait and lead to see, like I'm doing here, whether there's rocks there, whether there's fallen trees. You know, if you're losing fish out there constantly on a snag that shouldn't be there, i.e. it's the middle of the river, you can go out with your rod in the boat and just donk a lead down and you can quite quickly work out what's down there. So you got that side of things. Obviously this trip, I've moved over to the using the clips in the trees. Obviously there's no way you can do that without a boat. So there's another advantage there. And then thirdly, and the last one I would say, is something I never realised I would ever do on the river, is actually go and search for carp. Now there must be 25 miles between locks here. So the carp could be anywhere left or right of me in a 25-mile section of river. And I never ever thought I'd be able to find carp. It's just not happening. It's 20 foot deep. They could be miles away. They could be in the deep water. You're just not going to see them. It's not a gin clear river. But last year when we was out with the other half canoeing, we actually come across what I was sure was carp. We'd come across some weed beds and massive fish would thrash off. So this year we've actually set out looking for fish, and unbelievably we've found loads. Hot sunny days, they're up in the weed, in the shallows, in real shallow water. The shallower the better, sometimes 2 foot of water. And what surprised me the most is where I'd expect to find them on lakes in a certain type of weed, they're not in on the river. They're only in certain types of weed. As long as in your section you can find this particular type of weed, they will sit in it. Now this section has got a lot of lily type plants and you very rarely find them in it. It's also got what I'd class as Canadian pondweed, real thick weed that grows in the margins. You don't find them in that either, unless I'm just not seeing them. There's another type of weed that looks like Canadian, that's quite long and stringy, not as thick. It doesn't grow so thick. It kind of leaves big gaps in between the bunches of it. And they absolutely love that type of weed. And when the sun's out and it's absolutely baking hot, 38 degrees, that's exactly where they're going to be. So boats, what kind of boat do you need? Well, I've just got a kind of a cheap Boat World boat, I think it is. I think I found the advert on Facebook or eBay or somewhere like that. It was about 350 pounds. I've got an electric outboard on that as well. Far too big for what I'm doing here, but it's perfect for when you want to trundle up and down the river and probably go up to a mile, as you've probably seen me doing in some of the earlier videos, with all my kit in the boat, dropping off somewhere near to a road, loading the boat up and off you go, mile downstream, in a farmer's field, do the night. Brilliant. It's only 1.8 meters long, not sure on the width, aluminium bottom, really, really good. Means I can stand up in it. I don't know what the inflatable ones are like, but aluminium bottom, I can stand up in it. Absolutely brilliant. It's a nice black colour, very carpy. It's absolutely ideal. Couple that up with a leisure battery and you're off, you're away. So guys, back again, we're back down the river. It's Thursday night, it's the last night of the second week. Obviously we were here last night, lost that fish first thing this morning, just before packing up time, bit of a gutter. Got to put it all back together though and try and make something happen tonight. Really want to finish on a high. It's been a real difficult year this year for fishing out here on the river for myself. Kind of hit the ground running last year and just kept going really. Kept the bait going in, kept the fish coming. When things slowed down, made a few changes. Tried to fish the same area. And it all kind of paid off. This year it's gone a bit tits up, shall we say. I've struggled to get back in the same spots. Never seem to get anything going. Each time I move around I can hear fish crashing out in the swims I've left, or not left, but the ones that other people are in, so I couldn't have got back in there anyway, you know. Maybe they're on my bait, maybe they're not. So anyway, tonight we're going in with 2 rods are going back on Snowman. It's the presentation I've had all the runs on so far, so it's the one that's doing the business, so I'm going to stick with that. The third rod, just for something different, is a double bottom bait, greedy pig rig, 2 20mm baits, just straight bottom bait, and then all 3 rods are going to have just a PVA stringer on, 10 baits. Well guys, it's Friday morning now, I'm all packed up, ready to go home. Last night just before dark, nearly got wiped out by a boat coming through. Had to go out and reset all 3 rods in the dark. Absolute nightmare on your own, but perseverance paid off, especially with them line clips. Managed to catch 2 fish in the night, well early this morning anyway, just as the light was coming up. A small scampy common and a beautiful mid 20 common. I'm going to get that out now. Let's have a look. There you go guys, perseverance pays off. Beautiful common on the last morning, fantastic result, difficult conditions. I'm so glad we were finally able to overcome them. And a suitable way to end ShareAlike Carp in 2020. Fantastic.